Thank you for joining us tonight at 5:30. I'm Sarah Horbacewicz here in the Weather Center with Simone Thomas. Now, the big question on everyone's mind, we're just a week away from Christmas. Is the weather going to cooperate?
I sure hope so. I mean, we do have some things coming up that we're tracking that we'll talk about. As for right now, this weekend, we're going to kick off the week with some nice conditions. So leading up till Christmas, we've got some great weather ahead of us. This cold front and storm system that brought us the rain and pretty gloomy conditions yesterday, now off to the East Coast. Behind that, we're being left with these clear skies across the entire state that will continue overnight. So we're going to see some pretty chilly temperatures to kick off Monday morning, starting to dip into more of the upper 30s to lower 40s. Looking to see a low of 39 here in the capital city, not too far off from the average low around this time of year. We're supposed to get down to 34, expecting 40 over in Pine Bluff as well as Hot Springs. Arkadelphia looking to get down to around 37. Like Sarah mentioned, we are a week away now from Christmas Eve, so I'll have the first look at what we're expecting coming up in your full forecast, so make sure you stick around.
All right, thank you, Simone. Today, several organizations in Little Rock came together for a unity march, bringing awareness to the current state of Arkansas's prison system. The group went through Little Rock neighborhoods discussing the health and safety of inmates. Many among the group have personal connections with the prison system, either themselves or through loved ones. Ladina Biddle is the founder of Arkansas Department of Corrections Family Support. She's advocating for what she says is basic human rights for inmates. She hopes today's march shows concern from Arkansans.
We need to get back to the core basics of treating people with human dignity and providing their basic rights and rehabilitation. And when you treat people like they're worthy, then you have somebody worthy of being released into society.
We'll have more on today's march and hear from the other organizations that attended tonight at 10. This all, of course, comes on the heels of a drama-filled week between the Arkansas Board of Corrections and the state prison secretary. Last month, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders called on the board to approve 500 more beds to help with overcrowding. The board has consistently pushed back on the request. Then Secretary Porphyry announced plans to override the board using powers given to him by lawmakers earlier this year. The board flexed back, suspending Porphyry. Finally, just before the end of the business day this past Friday, a judge ruled the suspension stands pending a hearing. For her part, Governor Sanders says she fully backs her cabinet secretary, but did not respond to our questions of how she plans to respond if Porphyry tries to show up for work. New tonight at 10, North Little Rock police giving us new updates in a deadly shooting yesterday. A man was found shot in the area of Perrin Road and Kier Drive yesterday afternoon around 2:30. That man has now been identified as 58-year-old Michael Rivas. In an update tonight, police say they did not only identify the victim, but the shooter as well. While they did not release the name of anyone involved, they tell us he or she is cooperating with detectives. Police are still collecting evidence as they wait to determine what the charges will be in the shooting. Police are also investigating after a robbery attempt leaves a woman shot. Officers responded to the Waffle House on Camp Robinson Road just before 9 on Friday night. Customers say a man entered with a gun demanding money. That's when he shot the gun, hitting a woman. It's unclear if that woman was a worker or just a customer. There's no information right now on who that suspect might be. For the next few stories, we want to focus on education in Arkansas. We begin with a new effort to protect the teaching of African American history in the state. It comes amid criticism of a College Board AKP course on the subject. Tonight, THV11's Journey Taylor brings us a closer look at how some of this history is critical for students and society.
When I hear people wanting to repackage or to represent American history, it disturbs me in a way that I don't quite have words for.
Dr. Philip L. Pointer Sr. is the senior pastor of St. Mark Baptist Church, one of the largest Baptist churches in the state of Arkansas. He says there is a responsibility each of us have to continue to perpetuate that right knowledge, the right handing down of history without trying to adjust the narratives to fit our comfort levels.
It will ignore the pain that people are presently experiencing, and then it won't allow us to address the systems that need to be addressed in order to bring about the true promise of America, which is liberty and justice for all.
It was just days before the first day of school when the Arkansas Department of Education announced that AP African American Studies would not count towards graduation. The department said it was reviewing the course for possible indoctrination.
The idea that anything that has to do with the racial history of the nation is critical race theory, which is a misnomer.
And Dr. John Kirk, distinguished professor of history at UA Little Rock, also agrees perception is playing a role.
I think a lot of it has to do with the content or perceived content of the classes.
Kirk, originally from London, has studied African American history for decades. He says what we are seeing when it comes to lawmakers questioning if and how African American history is taught isn't unique to the times we are living in.
In the South, in particular in textbooks, the way that Reconstruction was taught, for example, has shifted dramatically over the years. Indeed, one of the founding texts in African American history is W.B. Du Bois's book, Black Reconstruction, which actively tried to challenge the way that Reconstruction and African Americans were presented in Southern textbooks.
And now for decades, curricula has been criticized for not focusing on the history of all.
The very fact that it is sort of labeled as something separate from American history in itself speaks to the way that that history has been excluded from mainstream histories of American history in the past.
Community members are stepping in to teach up-and-coming scholars.
The Black church in America has always taught African American history.
Pointer says as a pastor, professor, and parent, it is his responsibility to ensure those he has responsibility for are properly informed.
So the idea is that we can't be spiritual without being social. So St. Mark does our best to ensure that in our children and youth spaces and in our adult spaces, we're sharing proper history.
From having a living museum this year for Black History Month to integrating African American history into scripture, Pointer and leaders of his church are prioritizing keeping the story alive of those who have overcome systems of oppression.
But I am not worried because I know that God ultimately has the last say. And that God is on the side of the oppressed.
History is all around us, in our families, in our communities, everywhere we look. And I really encourage my students to bring that knowledge into the classroom and test it against academic knowledge and see where it fits.
In Little Rock, Journey Taylor, THV 11 News.
Now we turn to some big changes coming to the Little Rock School District. This as the district looks to cut around $15 million from next year's budget. The school board met this past week to vote on plans moving forward. The biggest development from that meeting, continued plans to build a new high school in West Little Rock. The district now approving a price tag of $145 million for those plans. This new number is still $65 million more than the estimate used to get voters to support a millage extension. Other changes include closing Cloverdale Middle School and Baseline Elementary due to low enrollment. Those will go to the new Lacey K-8 school. One thing not approved, the closing of Parkview High School, which had been a concern for a number of parents. And a heads up for parents in Benton, the school district wants your input on a new idea to change the calendar. The idea they're looking at is shortening summer break to add longer breaks during the school year.
We do have some interest, but it's about a 60-40 split. And our staff really still has a lot of questions that they'd like to see if we can get some answers to before we would jump into doing that. You know, we're just trying to find what our community and what our staff and students and everything are most comfortable with.
For more information on this, you can head over to our website right now at thv11.com. Wall Street ending the past week with a boom, but despite all the positive economic news, some consumers still have concerns. What experts have to say about the current state of our economy ahead. And parents, beware of possibly dangerous applesauce. Now the FDA has concerns the lead contamination could have been done on purpose. What we know in 5 minutes.
And we're a week away from Christmas Eve. I'm sure you're all wondering what we need to look out for. I'll have that first look of your Christmas weekend forecast right after this break.